I'm Leanne Tran, psychologist who's worked with families whose kids don't fit the mould for almost 20 years. I've worked with children for decades, but I know parents are the real change makers when it comes to their kids. Having 3 kids of my own means I know it's not easy. Parent Like a Psychologist is all about simplifying how you support your kids with psychology information filtered through years of experience to take you from overwhelmed to confident. Come on in.
Welcome everyone to another episode of Parent Like a Psychologist, and welcome to my very special guest today, Kasey Edwards. Thanks so much for joining us.
Hi, Leanne. It's so nice to talk to you.
So we're talking today about the book you've written, Raising Girls Who Like Themselves. I like that like is underlined as well, who like themselves in a world that tells them they're flawed. I think this is so needed in so many ways, even now more than ever. But first, maybe it would be good for our listeners if you can tell them a little bit about you and your experience and what you do.
Sure. So I'm a writer and a researcher, and I've written 10 books. Raising Girls Who Like Themselves is my 7th book, and I co-wrote it with my husband, Dr. Christopher Scanlon. And the reason who is also a researcher, and the reason we wrote it is because we became the parents of a girl, and we just didn't know how to be the parents that we felt that she deserved. And for me, the motivation was so deep that when I thought about what I wanted for my daughter, I wanted her to grow up liking herself more than I did when I was growing up. And I didn't know how to raise her to like herself because, unless we learn otherwise, we parent how we were parented. And I realized that if I just raise her the way I was raised, well, then we'll get the same result. And so this was actually a 10-year project for Chris and me. And we started off doing it just for ourselves because we are writers and researchers. We have the luxury of being able to call up the world's leading experts. We could read the latest research. And so we did it for ourselves just to raise our little girl. And then one day we were at a party and we were talking about the research, and a friend said, I don't have time to read all of that. Can you just tell me what I have to do? And so that's why we wrote it. And the other thing I want to add, Leanne, is we both work. We have no family support. Our life is as busy and chaotic as everyone else. So we wanted to find strategies that were evidence-based. There is nothing that we have made up or just reckon. There's no our personal philosophy. But they're also strategies that you can do in a normal family and that we ourselves. And so after Raising Girls came out, just quickly, if there's any boy parents listening, we have written Bringing Up Boys Who Like Themselves. But the reason we wrote Raising Girls first was because we had a girl.
And I think I think the book is great for that. So it's the middle ground between someone doing all of that research and reading themselves, and then the 3-minute answer that person at the birthday party maybe wanted. This is a nice middle ground, because it's really easy to understand and easy to think about how you can use these strategies as a parent. And I particularly like that you've got a section on there for dads. So in each chapter, there's one particularly for dads so that, they can jump maybe right to that bit, or also just to really think about that father-daughter relationship, which is so important.
Yes, it's actually turned out to be quite controversial to have a for dads section because people say, well, dads should read the whole book too, and dads are just as involved. And yes, we wrote the whole book for any parent, any grandparent, any teacher, any carer. But the reality is, based on cold, hard data, mums buy books, right? And we've heard so many times, and look, if you're a dad listening to this and you read books and you are actively learning how to be a better parent, then that is wonderful. But the reality is a lot of dads do not have the time, make the time, invest in the time. So, and mothers would say to us, how do I get my husband on the same page? Or how do I
Yeah.
get my parents on the same page? So what
Hmm.
we did at the end of each chapter, just one page of what the dad or the babysitter or the grandparent or whatever can do to support all the other strategies in the book.
Yes. Yeah. I think, I mean, I don't know, maybe this is going to be controversial as well, but my husband is a pediatrician and he is invested in all of this stuff, and he would go to the dad note section, I'm
Yes.
sure, in this book, because there's for him it's about also how he consumes information. Is I want the short sharp bits that can stick in my mind and I can use it. So yeah, I think
Yeah,
it's
so it's not an insult or a slight on dads. It's just
no.
our approach to parenting, also in the whole book and in our other books as well, is that we need to accept the reality of the world that we are in and parent
Yeah.
our children for that world. And the
Mm,
part of the reality is that most dads don't read books.
mhm. Yeah. Yeah. I think, that's it's really interesting that you talk about it being grounded in the reality, and because change takes a long time.
Mhm.
And so if we're trying to raise our girls for the world we want them to live in, that's great, but it's probably not gonna be there even by the time they're adults. So yeah, you've got to really go with the system that you're in now, because that's the bit you can't change.
That's right. So we talk in our book about things we can do that actually reduce the chance of your daughter being sexually harassed or even sexually assaulted. And
Mm,
so that,
mhm.
that talks about the body ownership and body control. And we can talk about that in a minute. And when I say that, parents go, it's not the girls, it's the boys we need to be talking to, and the boys have to do better. And my answer is yes. But if they're not, our girls need to be prepared.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly right. It's a matter of doing both, and
That's
that's why there's 2 books.
yes.
Yeah, and I agree with you. And so you talk through, that there are, I think it's 7, yeah, main
Potentialism.
ideas about for a girl to be, to like herself.
Yes.
And the first well, yeah, there's lots of interesting parts in there. I'm interested to hear, because we might not be able to talk about all of them in the same detail today. Do you find there's one that resonates more with people, or one or a couple that do?
So it turned out that body ownership was very controversial. And
Mm,
I didn't
right.
realize that it was when I was writing it until I ended up on the front page of the Daily Mail in the UK being called the kissing police. And
Okay.
so it seems like a no-brainer that girls should own their bodies. But the reality
Mm,
is many times in a thousands of times in a girl's experience growing up, she will be taught that she doesn't in all these little
mm,
micro moments. And my argument is you cannot really truly have your own power, believe in yourself, like yourself, if you don't feel like you own your body.
mm,
And so part of that is well, what was most controversial was clothing and forced affection. So the
right.
clothing is we have a rule that if it's not permanent or it's not harmful, she gets to decide, even
Yeah,
if you don't agree, and
yeah.
especially if you don't agree, right? And
Mhm,
it's amazing how, as a society, we think we own little girls' bodies. We tell them
mm,
what they wear, what they can do with their hair, when they're allowed to get their ears pierced, when they're allowed to wear makeup. And then we shame them when they don't fit those guidelines that we've decided for them. But the thing
yeah.
is, what we're doing every time we tell a little girl that you can't wear that, we are telling them what I think about how you look is more important than what you think. And
Mm, mhm,
every time we teach our girls to look to other people for validation, we are robbing them of their self worth. And so
mm,
many of the experiences that girls have to be good girls is actually to teach them to rely on an external source for approval and validation. And that will, by definition, raise them to be insecure.
yeah, absolutely. I agree. I wrote down something about that. Um, yeah, give kids autonomy unless it's harmful or permanent. I think that is a great rule.
It
And
also makes parenting so much easier.
yeah,
You don't have
exactly.
to worry if your daughter wants to dress up from something from the dress up box to go to kinder. If
Yeah.
it's safe, let her.
Yep.
Like, it
Yeah,
doesn't matter.
exactly. That's
And
right.
so, just coming back to what I mentioned earlier about sexual harassment and sexual assault, one of the reasons we think, and particularly dads think they have to police what girls wear, is they think that they are protecting them from being sexually harassed and sexually assaulted. That is
Yeah.
categorically not true. And every
Yeah.
woman knows that. We've all been harassed, and it doesn't matter if we're wearing a paper bag, right? And
Yeah. Yeah.
it's essentially slut shaming and blaming girls. But the
Mm,
research shows that it's not the sexy girl who is the target of sexual predators. It is the vulnerable girl. They target
yeah.
the weak girls. And
Yep.
every time we rob our daughter of her power, saying, you are so weak, you cannot even decide what you're going to wear, we are
Mm,
essentially making her vulnerable. So I think
mhm.
in parents trying to keep their daughter safe, they're actually increasing the risk. Because, am I allowed to swear on your
Yes,
podcast?
I think
Okay.
so. Yeah.
All right. What we want our girls to have is don't fuck with me vibes.
Yeah.
That is what makes our girls the safest they possibly can be. And it
Yeah.
has nothing to do with that item of clothing and everything to do with them feeling like they own their body and they are entitled to the space that they're in.
Yeah. Yep. I wholeheartedly agree, and I think it's interesting that there was so much backlash, but I can also at the same time, I'm not surprised because that's why society is the way it is. Um, and yeah, we know that it's not about what girls wear. It's not
Mhm.
about anything like that. It's about the imbalance of power a lot of the time. And so having our kids be and feel powerful is the most important thing. Um, and we know now too, and I've got other books on the shelf for thinking about like that child you know, can't remember what it's called, but kind of that way of, I guess it's body safety and that kind of thing. So for kids to know the right names about their body and to um, have autonomy right from a young age to prevent this abuse is now, what I'm talking about all the time with families. So it's definitely the way to go.
That's right. A girl cannot own her body if she cannot even name the parts of her body, front bottom and back bottom. We should be using correct terminology from the very beginning.
Yeah, that's right. Um, I think too, like, because we've kind of covered a bit about, you've got the chapter on owning her body, but also body confidence. And one of the things I noticed, and I noticed that it's true in my life experience as well, is that we do focus a lot more on what girls look like than
Yes.
we do with boys. And so
Mhm.
it's that automatic thing sometimes of even greeting a kid at the kindy gate and saying, "Oh, that's a pretty thing," or "You look pretty," or instead of I picked up myself doing it once at a book, one of those book week events at school, and then thought, "What did you say that for? Why didn't you say, oh, she's a great character," or "I you love that book, that's awesome." But we just naturally do it. But what you mentioned on the book or in the chapter too is that what we focus on sends the message that it's important. So the more times we're commenting on that and doing it, we're sending our girls, the message that, you know, that's really important to us as an adult.
Yeah, and that's not parents' fault. Like you said, we've all done it. We all comment on beauty for a couple of reasons. One is because little girls are gorgeous. But the
Mm,
thing is, little boys are too. But we
yeah,
can think of
yeah,
other things to say to little boys. But
yeah.
that's how we have been raised. And so as a result of that, a girl will likely hear more comments about her appearance than everything
Mm,
else combined. So she
hmm.
will naturally grow up believing that her beauty is the most important thing about her. And people think, and this is where we have got it so wrong, that if you tell your daughter over and over again that she's beautiful, one day she'll believe it, and then she'll be able to like herself. But the problem
Yeah.
with that is that nobody in our society is beautiful enough. I have interviewed 2 supermodels, and they do not have a good body image, right? They're not beautiful enough. So if we tell our daughter that her beauty is the most important thing, or make her believe that because that's what we're so focused on, and send her out into a world where she will never be beautiful enough, again, she will be insecure, because beauty, it's another thing that's an external measure. Someone decides that about her. They give it to her and they take it away. And so what we need to do instead is to build our girls' identity and self-worth on things that they can control, that other people can't take away from them, like their creativity and their kindness and their tenacity and their joy and their fun to be around, and things that they control, rather than someone else deciding if they're pretty or not.
Yeah, I agree. And that makes me think about your first, feature of a girl who likes herself is one that has a power. Sorry, I feel like I'm looking down a lot. If anyone's watching this on YouTube, it's because I'm looking at my notes in my book. Look at all these notes.
Oh, look at those notes.
Yeah. And it's because you were saying that she should care what she thinks. And that's really important, I think, not what she looks like, or, the beauty thing again is an outside judgment, but she should care if she likes how she looks, and what she thinks she's good at. So rather than caring what other people think, we want our girls to care about what they think.
And naturally, children do. Little kids dress for themselves. Little kids marvel at all the things they can do, right? And then through our socialization, bit by bit, boys as well, but more so to girls, we teach them that they're only valuable if someone else decides that they are. And so a power perspective is the idea that we can't always control what happens to us in the world, but we can control how we respond to it and what we think about that. And so that is reinforcing over and over again to your daughter and your son that they get to decide who they are and if that is okay. And just one strategy that is really powerful and doesn't take up any more time is what we call flipping praise. So our children will come to us thousands of times in their childhood looking for praise.
Oh, yeah.
Do you like my drawing? Do you like my summer? Whatever. When we give our praise freely, we are implicitly telling them that we get to decide if that drawing is good enough, not them. But what we should be doing is using that opportunity to teach them that it's their drawing, it's their work, their opinion matters the most. So take a moment and say, it's your drawing, so I'm really interested in what you think. What do you think of your drawing? And if they like it, you go, that's great, because your opinion matters the most because it's your work. If they don't like it, then you can say, well, what would you like to do differently next time? But that's thousands of times we get to tell our children to build their power perspective rather than teaching them that they need to defer to someone else. Because when they're young, like, we have their best interests at heart, right? But as soon as they head out into the world, as soon as they get online, there's going to be people who don't. And so we need to prepare them for that by building up their power perspective.
Yeah, that's right. And so it was interesting too to hear about, because it's all about, the way I would describe it is feeling like you have the power to try to do things. So it's not so much that you will succeed, but it's about, like, you have the power to give things a go and to try things. It was interesting to read about the research that talks about how girls do a few things differently in terms of how they think about the choices they have. And one was that they tend to hint for things rather than ask for things. And that they tend, well, not that they tend to, but they can often be noticed and appreciated for if there's catastrophe as well.
Yes.
It was really interesting to learn those two things, and I think I've noticed that I probably hint at things and don't ask, and so now I think now I know why.
Yeah, we're
Um,
socialized because it's greedy and unladylike to
mm,
actually want, to actually have desires, right? And so
yes,
we were probably shamed for it. I certainly was shamed for wanting things.
yeah,
For and so little girls learn that they have to hint at things, and it's just so disempowering to hint.
yeah,
So
yeah,
we actually don't let our girls hint. It was like, no, you want something, you need to ask for it. What is it that you actually want? And it doesn't mean
yes,
you're going to get a yes, but there is self-worth that comes from the act of asking.
yeah, yeah.
And
I
the other
think,
thing that girls are socialized to do is wishing.
yeah,
All fairy tales and toys and, you know, fairy dust, and little girls make wishes. Boys aren't encouraged to make wishes, and it's so disempowering to just sit there passively and hope that the universe is going to bestow something on you. It's like, no, you
mm,
ask or you make a plan and you work
yeah.
for it.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say, that it's the hinting and even that wishing as well. It all is like then hoping it will come to us because we're not in charge of it. And it's like that beauty thing. If kids girls are looking for validation from outside, this is about hoping they'll get what they want from other people as well, rather
Yes.
than taking control about how they might, yeah, go about getting it.
Because then you're
Um,
always insecure because you don't know how the world's going to treat you. You don't know
yeah.
whether someone's going to grant your wish or not, right?
Yes, yeah. And I think the security comes so much from believing that you have the capacity to do things.
That's
Um,
right. That's what
mm,
confidence is, right? Knowing
mm,
that you can do hard things. And
mhm,
one of the other pillars is that we talk about is independence and mastery, and
mhm,
that's where real self-esteem comes from your child doing things themselves when they're hard, letting them struggle,
mm,
letting them fail. And as a parent, it's so hard, right? Because we want to rush in and rescue our kids so they don't have to do life the hard way. But life is hard. And every time we
mm,
rush in and rescue them, we're saying, you're right, you can't do it on your own. And we're
yeah,
denying them the self-esteem that comes from that mastery and the confidence that comes from knowing through their own experience that they can do hard things.
yeah, that's right. I have a personal story about that. I think is that we've recently, an example for me, and I know it's probably traditionally a female one, is cooking for the family, but my two boys cook as well. Um, But it's the idea of teaching a skill that our kids have, and they do it, on the most part, maybe once a week or so. But recently we thought, "Do you know what? Our daughter's a bit young, the boys are older, we could probably not expect her to do that so much." And she fired up against us. She was like, "No way, I wanna do it, I like doing it, it's useful, it's valuable, I can manage my other expectations like study and everything else around it, because I want to keep doing it." So I think that's exactly showing that the confidence that comes from that mastery of a skill.
That's right. And good on your daughter for
Yeah,
fighting to
yeah,
do it.
yes,
But
yeah,
even
that's
when
right.
kids don't want to do it, our
Yes.
job is not to create perfect childhoods where kids are never upset with us. Our job is
No,
to raise
absolutely.
functioning adults. And that
Yes.
means that you have to do things you don't want to do sometimes. And it means that you need to develop the skills to do life.
Yeah, that's right. Um, and the things I noticed from that chapter too is that it's about doing things like, we can do that by praising the efforts that our kids make as well, rather than the outcome of the tasks. But
That is so
also,
important because
yeah,
kids can
yeah,
replicate that, right? So praising outcome can reduce self-esteem. It can be demotivating.
mm,
Whereas
mhm,
praising effort is something that kids can always replicate, and you can't always control the outcome, but you can
Yeah.
control the effort that you put into it. And our family is really extreme on that. So we never ask or comment or focus on marks, on tests.
Right.
We don't
Yeah.
even talk about it. We talk about
Yeah.
the effort that went into learning.
Yes. Yeah. I think it's much better placed. I say that too a lot to, I mean, all clients I work with who everyone, I mean, learning, you can't control how easy stuff is for you either. You can
Mhm.
control your effort and your approach or your perspective.
Yes.
And yeah, yeah. So, I feel like your house might be quite similar to our house.
And people think that if they don't focus on marks, their kids won't get good marks and they
Yeah.
won't achieve. And that is simply not true, because kids want to succeed. And if they can
Mm,
and you get to define what success is. If your definition of success is trying, then they're going to
yes.
want to try because they're going to want to succeed.
Yeah. Yes. It's often a funny thing I find that we can tend to try and look at the outcomes we're looking for kids as a long term, but then there's a disconnect between that and what they actually need to do day to day to get there. So sometimes we praise the things because we think then hoping our kids will magically then get there, but
Mhm.
it's really the things they need to be able to do, like struggle when stuff is hard and try and ask for help. And the other thing you had in there is speaking for themselves as well.
Yes.
So these are all the things that go into that eventual success. So it's better to focus on all of that stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah, speaking for yourself is it's a really interesting one, and it's an indicator of success at school. We interviewed a principal who could tell which kids in the first year of school were going to thrive based on
Mm,
what they said or how they conducted themselves in their intake interview 6 months earlier. And what it
right.
was not the content of what the children said, it was whether or not the parents allowed the child to speak for themselves. Because
Yeah.
very
Okay.
often in those intake interviews, the teacher will say to the child, "So, what do you like doing at kinder?" And the parent will jump in and go, "Well, they like doing blah, 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 blah," right?
Mm,
Because
hmm.
they don't want to make their child feel uncomfortable, or they feel uncomfortable because their child isn't speaking in a full sentence. But if you just instead, you're the parent who says to your child, "Remember what you did yesterday? We brought it home and put it on
Mm,
the fridge. What was that? You
hmm.
really like that." And the kid goes, "Painting," like just one word.
Mm,
That is teaching your child, first of all, the skill of speaking and speaking to adults, which is critically important for their success. But it's also teaching them that what they have to say matters and is important.
yeah.
And that, speaking for yourself, your child, if you encourage your child to do that, they will do better academically and socially at school.
Mm, hmm. Yeah. It's really interesting, isn't it? And I think there are definitely differences in girls versus boys as well for that. Yeah, is that what you found in the research as well?
Yes, but a big part of that is our expectations are different and our role
Right.
modeling is different.
Yeah, okay.
So girls see women talking more than they see dads talking, right?
Right, okay. Yeah.
They do, sometimes they've not seen their dad interact with a friend or
Mm,
see
mhm.
dad help somebody else, where they see mum, helping at school or talking to people at the school gate or whatever. So there's that
Yeah.
role modeling. But
Yep.
we encourage girls through the toys that we give them, the play that we expect them to do, to use language-based play, and we don't often
Mm,
encourage that of boys. And again,
yeah, okay.
it's a skill, and it's a skill
Yeah.
that girls learn earlier because their play is centered around, dolls and role play, and boys is around action of banging things and
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's really interesting. Um, and so then one of the last things I wanted to mention too was, your final pillar is that a girl who likes herself likes herself.
yeah, she loves herself.
Oh, sorry, is herself. Yeah, who
Yes.
likes herself is herself. I like that a lot. And you talked about in the chapter seed parenting versus stone parenting, and it reminds me I've done an episode before on a book called the like gardener versus the carpenter. That
Oh,
book about
right. Okay.
yeah, because it's that same idea
Yeah.
of are we
Yeah.
trying to so stone parenting is are we trying to chisel our kids into something, and in this other book it was carpentry, are we trying to build something, or are we planting a garden and our kids are the seeds and we don't exactly know how it's going to grow or what it's going to look like, but we're nurturing it along the way. um, yeah, that's and then it's by following their or acknowledging their strengths, accepting who they are, and encouraging them to be themselves. What what's your main takeaway from that
Yes.
kind of
So,
pillar?
what our children need more than anything, and if you just take one thing away from this interview, it is that your child needs what we all need. We want to be seen, loved, and accepted for who we are in this moment. We don't want to
Mm,
have to pass a test or get a mark or win a race or hang out with the popular kids or lose weight or get on the soccer team or whatever to feel like we're good enough. We want to be good enough
yeah.
right now. And we want to be seen for who we are right now. And that can be really hard for parents. You know, the unspoken part of parenting is grief. We all had an
Mm,
idea of what our children were going to be like. And sometimes they come out like that, sometimes they don't. And if they
yeah.
don't meet our expectations, then it is normal and natural for us to grieve for what we didn't get. But that
Mm,
is our work. That is what we need to do because our children need us to accept them. And if your child feels loved and accepted, so many of the problems that we fear in teenage years will not be there. If
yeah.
your child is loved and accepted at home, then less likely to do stupid things outside of the home to try and get it.
Yes.
And at
Yeah.
a very, very basic level of being a seed parent, first of all, it makes your job easier because there's just things, it's not your job to construct
Yeah.
this perfect child. It's their
Yeah.
job. You know, you can't turn your
Yeah.
rose into a sunflower or the other way around, right? So back off and let them be them. But
Yeah.
what we need to do is find our children's strengths. Now,
Mm,
if you have a child whose strengths are measured on report cards or sporting fields, then it's probably easy. But if you don't, then you need to put the work in to find out what your child is good at because
mm,
every child desperately needs to know that they are good at things and what they're good at is valued by you. And so
mm,
people say to me, I don't have time to focus on my child's strengths because, you know, my kid can't read. But the
yeah.
research shows that focusing on your child's strengths 80% of the time is the best way to help your child develop and correct their weaknesses. And so,
Mm,
just an example of how that works. So, imagine there are two kids who are struggling to read. And one has stone parents who's focusing on the weaknesses because reading's important and you're never going to get anywhere in life if you don't read. And they go to their catch up reading class and they're ashamed, they're angry, they're shut down.
mm,
Just
mhm,
being there is validation that they are not worthy. And then you've got the seed parents who focus on their strengths. And this kid goes, I'm a really creative person. I can make anything beautiful, and I need a little bit of extra help with my reading.
mhm.
Now, that child is far more open to learning and will
Yeah.
probably end up being a better reader than the one whose parents are totally focused on the weakness of reading.
Yeah. That's very in line with what I talk to parents about as well, because I think we can, especially when your child does have some things that are legitimate, um, challenges, like if it's reading or if it's something else, our focus often can fall onto just that, trying to develop that and bring it up to be average. But I think that's imagine if it's hard and then so you have to do more of it. Like that's
Yes.
pretty unenjoyable as a kid. So I think too that balance is really important, not only in making them feel better and have that good approach to to learning with the challenges, but it also helps them feel better about themselves. That's more resilience and a better mental health pathway as well, versus heading towards anxiety and depression and that
Yeah,
kind of stuff. Yeah.
absolutely. When they define themselves based on what they can do rather than on what they
Mm,
can't, everything is better. Every outcome is better.
yeah. Yeah. I think yes, absolutely. And so this is why I think, this is why you can see there's a lot of notes in the book. I think there's lots of things that really fit and resonate. And I think, yeah, it's a really useful book for parents. I think it's really easy to understand, and got lots of great research in there, but also then you talk about ways that you can actually implement these things. Um, you've also got in there, a few case examples and that kind of thing as well, that I think makes it healthy, easy to then understand how, you're seeing it by demonstration. Um, is there anything else that you feel like we haven't covered today that's worth a mention? Because we've kind of jumped all over a lot of the pillars.
Yeah, so we haven't talked about calm. Now, by
True.
calm, I don't mean a totally zen child who's never any trouble or pushes boundaries or anything like that. What I mean is the soil. If you're going to be the stone
Yeah.
parent, you need to create the seed parent. You need to create the right environment for your child to thrive. And what
Yes.
kids need, and so many of them are not getting through the very best intentions of parents, is they are
Yeah.
not getting enough sleep and they're not getting enough
Yes.
play.
Yeah.
Kids are chronically tired because they are overscheduled.
Mm,
Now, not having enough sleep, we now know, affects the length of our life. It
mm,
affects our dementia risk. It affects everything. So if you have a child who is struggling with attention at school, behavior management, emotional regulation, friendships, just the very first place to look is, are they getting enough sleep? Because a lot of kids are not. Now, there is
mhm.
not any extracurricular activity or homework sheet that is more important for your child's brain development than getting enough sleep. And
Yep.
sleep is a habit. And the way your child gets enough sleep is prioritizing that habit.
Yeah.
So in our family, sleep is one of the most important things. Like, if
Mhm.
we schedule our family around our kids getting the sleep that they need every night. They are in bed at the same time every night. There is no screens 1 hour before bedtime, and that is so important. I hear from so many parents who allow screens in the bedroom. Now, we as
Mhm.
adults have trouble controlling our screen use. It is too much to expect your child to do that. So the
Yeah.
other thing is, so there's sleep, but the other thing is play. And our generation have really made a mistake of thinking that if something isn't adult-led and it doesn't have a learning outcome, then it's not worth doing.
Yeah.
Need to play every single day. Play is like our brain's reset, but it's
Mm.
also where kids learn who they are, what they
Yeah.
love. They try on different identities. They learn to fail in a safe place. They learn to interact with children and their peers without having adults involved. So play
Yeah.
means it is child-led. It is not
Mhm.
adult-led. It's not a fun learning activity dressed up as play. It is absolutely led by the child, and it has no measured outcome, no learning objective. So it's the
Yeah.
difference between kicking the ball around the backyard and going to soccer practice. Now, even
Yeah.
if your child absolutely loves soccer practice, that is not play. They need to
Yeah.
play every single day.
Yeah. Yeah. And the thing is, they will learn so much through play. That's the thing. But it's got to be. I remember learning something about, or this idea that, like, well, we can't be creative when we're learning, and so it taps into that creativity, but by things being unstructured, there's no goal. The goal is only just to have fun and to to just do it. So it's providing that different balance of experience. I like the idea of thinking about it as the soil. It's having kids be, you know, eating well, but also getting enough sleep. I agree, not too overscheduled, lots of chances for play and unstructured time and boredom. Um,
And this is controversial, but it is actually backed up in evidence. Play
mm,
can be online. So
mhm.
if it is a game where the children are using their imagination and making up their
Yeah,
own rules and interacting with other kids, that is play. So a lot of
yeah,
the time, kids are overscheduled because parents are so scared of screens. We're having the
right.
wrong conversation about screens. It's what they're
Yes.
doing on them that is
Yep.
the problem. So my girls play Roblox, and I think Roblox is amazing if you make it safe. Now, there are
Mhm.
settings where you can make it safe. You can turn off any kind of in-app communication. So my girls
Yeah.
are on a different app talking to their friends. So no
Mm.
strangers can be involved, and they're only
Yeah.
playing Roblox games. And it is fully imaginative, and they have to resolve conflict and they have to solve problems. The same with Minecraft. That's Lego, online
Yeah.
Lego. So
Yes.
we don't have to feel bad about our kids doing that. And often it's good for them. I mean, obviously, play outside's wonderful, but we don't live in a world where our kids can just roam the streets the way we used to.
Mm. And I think too, I agree. It's about the quality of the activity on the screen, and it's is it play? And I couldn't agree more. I've had a couple of conversations with people about exactly the same thing this week. So yeah, it's interesting.
And particularly if they play with you, it's their favorite
Yeah.
thing. So my
Yes.
husband's playing Tomb Raider with my daughter at the moment, and it's just
Mhm.
like all her Christmases all at once getting to, beat daddy at a computer game.
Yes. Yep. Absolutely. Yeah, there's a bit of that in my house lately as well because there's those old school games on, I don't know even what app it is on our TV, but they've got old like Sega type games that my husband played when he was young. But and so now he's like, yeah, I'm gonna dominate you in this.
Yeah.
And so actually for teenage boys that works quite well. They like that kind of high level competition. So yeah, it's about being intentional about it and having the connections with people in how you play. Um, but yeah, I like that because I think too, like, calm, the word you've used is in opposition to anxiety, which is something that a lot of girls have. And so I think it's helpful to think about what actually goes into feeling calm. Um, and it's having the space and time to be able to yeah, be healthy and enjoy yourself.
Yeah, so we keep talking about, children are being robbed of their childhoods. Well, one
Mm,
we are robbing them of their childhoods by overscheduling them. Like some kids are
mm,
busier than we are.
yeah, yep,
Childhood, I mean, sometimes you do have to rush to get all the things done, but it's also easier on us. Like, so we used to be an overscheduled family because there's so much pressure on parents to, pour all this learning into children as quickly as possible. And so we were doing
mhm,
something every day, and everyone was tired and upset and at their worst. And then we'd go to bed, and then we'd get up and do the same thing the next day. And then we came to that part of the research in our book. And it's like, this is crazy. So we said,
yeah,
okay, you're doing swimming and one other extracurricular activity. And then we're going to prioritize play the way we would an extracurricular activity. So, for example, if
yeah,
your child has gymnastics on Wednesdays, you go to gymnastics,
yeah,
right? Well,
yep,
if your child has play at the park on Wednesdays, you go to the
yeah,
park on Wednesdays. Or
yes,
if it's come home and, play Minecraft on Thursdays, then let them. But we need to
yeah,
prioritize play above and beyond the scheduled learning because it is more important for them.
yeah, yep, absolutely. And yeah, I agree. I don't think there's anything we've disagreed on this whole episode, which is great. Um, and so Thank you so much for joining me for this episode, but also for writing the book as well, because I think it's really interesting and useful to see what's evidence actually shows, because what we assume is often not the case. And so that's why it's really important to make sure you've got accurate understanding of what all kids need, but particularly for girls, if we want to address those issues that are more likely to affect our girls as well.
That's right. And the other thing, Leanne, is absolutely everything that you hope and dream for your child becomes easier if they like themselves. If
Mm-hmm.
that becomes a focus, if that becomes your North Star in your decision making, and that doesn't mean never struggling, right? But
Yeah,
teaching them to like themselves and supporting them to do that, then everything, friendships, academics, they'll be kinder because they won't feel like they need to tear someone else down to feel good about themselves. They'll have a better relationship with you because they will know that you love and see them for who they are.
yeah, yep, yeah. So that's a good carrot for a parent, is how can you make it easier? This is one of the ways how. Yeah.
Yes, just the research in tiger parenting is really interesting because that happened long enough ago now for the studies to show that the parents who put a lot of focus on their child's academics,
Mm,
really, really focused and put pressure on academic achievement, and were essentially stone parents, have ended up with children who underperformed. They did not do better
mm,
academically.
mm,
They have poor mental health, and here's the real
mm,
kicker, they resent their parents. So their
mm.
parents tried so hard to sculpt their kids into what they thought success would look like, and they ended up with sad, underperforming kids who don't like them.
Yeah, which is my personal worst nightmare of a parent,
It
is
was
that
heartbreaking
they
for
don't
them
like
because they
me.
thought they were doing the right thing, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. That's why it's good to have a guide of what actually is going to move the needle towards having a happy, well-adjusted child, an
Yes.
adult. Yeah.
Yep.
Mm. Well, thank you again for joining me, and, yeah, it would be great to have another conversation soon about what we can do for boys.
I would love to come back and talk about boys. Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're so welcome.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Parent Like a Psychologist. If you found it helpful, please share on Instagram so other parents can benefit too, and tag me at Leanne Tran Psychology so that I can say a big thank you. Head over to leannetran.com.au to join the village for bite-sized psychology tips straight to your inbox. I really hope this podcast has brought a new perspective and you a step closer towards a calm parent and a thriving child. Have a delightful day.